On this episode of Controversial Conversations, we get raw and real. The discussion is about sex, or the lack of it. Nothing is off limits as my guests have come on and told their stories about where they have come from and how they are practicing purity today. We also discuss what it's like being a virgin and or maintaining sexual purity in a society where sex is highly normalized. This is an episode you don't want to miss. From beginning to end, it is quite impactful and inspiring. If you are listening to this on my podcast and you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe. You can also go ahead and rate this podcast 5 stars. If you are watching this on YouTube, thanks for joining in. Make sure to hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe. You can also comment your thoughts as the video goes along. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamarcus. I am 22. I'm from Chicago. I'm also really bad about introducing myself because I don't get to do it often enough that I should probably practice. But I will say, I think for me, the story isn't as exciting as a lot of people's. I am a church boy through and through, so kind of raised in church. I was born on a Sunday. The following Sunday, I was at church. Did that every year for up until now. And now I serve as a youth and tech pastor at a local church in Indianapolis. And so it's been kind of just a journey. I think I'm not a virgin for anyone who is. For all the people out there, you're not alone. But I think there is a transition that happens when you start to understand the difference. And so I think that's kind of where my story takes me, is understanding that even in the midst of it, there is grace. And so like, while I can't blame it on like a past life or not knowing Christ, it's also that because I know Christ, that I know grace and I know forgiveness. So.
All right, my name is David Myers. I'm 20 years old and I am from Fort Smith, Arkansas. I'm not a virgin either. I lost my I'm a little open, so I'll say that. I lost my virginity at 13. I got into the world very early, grew up around it, as we all know. But I stopped. I started practicing purity this year, actually. I gave myself to God back in August. And I grew up in the church, so I knew what was right and what was wrong. But I just wanted to have fun. So that's where everything changed for me, though, whenever I got out of that life. And I was like, I don't want to keep attaching my soul to somebody else every single time. And I just want to wait until I find that one person, the woman that God has for me. So that's what I've been doing lately. And it's amazing because he really allows you to focus on yourself and really get yourself right. And he's still putting women in your life that are helping you grow. I have a lot of women in my life that help me grow with him spiritually. And very, very grateful for that, because at first it was all the wrong women around me that were just looking to do the things with me that I was doing. But now it's women that's trying to grow with me or me helping them. So it's a blessing. So yeah.
Hi guys, I am 21 years old. My name is Kayla Jackson, and I'm a senior at Volcy State University. So I'm actually a virgin. I've been a virgin, been a virgin my whole life. But I will say the important thing about purity is that it's not just the physical aspect. It's also what you allow yourself to consume. And like for me, some of my struggle, even though I have been a virgin, has been like pornography and masturbation, all that other things. And it's important to understand that even though like, okay, cool, I succeeded as being physically still a virgin, it's about your intentions, your motives. And it's bigger than just the physical aspect. So I even commend you guys for even making that decision. So yeah. Oh, and I'm a dancer.
Hi guys. I'm Kat. I know you can't see me, but I'm 19, turning 20. I am attending Towson University, and let me think. So I am a virgin, but it's not that I'm really like I've made that decision my whole life to be a virgin. I feel like every encounter that like almost led up to anything, or like it was just kind of like blocked, and it wasn't because I wanted to, but I feel like, well, I'm like glad that those things did happen, but it wasn't like a like I wasn't being intentional, like trying to do that throughout my like teens and like through college and stuff. It just is like what happened. But now it's definitely more of an intentional decision that I'm making. And I do agree with her. It is like beyond physical activities. It does go into like what you're consuming with everything. And for me, it's just like, yeah, I just feel like, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, but I just know that when I'm doing this, like when I am being very intentional in what I consume and what I do, or even like practicing purity in the sense of physical or just whatever, it's just like, that's what it's like, it's hard, but I know it's more so what I'm supposed to be doing, if that's even the right terms. And it's just like, when I'm doing it, I feel a lot better. When I'm doing all the other stuff that comes with being a teen in college and just like the world in general, I'm definitely like a lot more lost and like lonely, I would say. Like, yes, I'm like surrounded by all these different things, but it's like, it's not really fulfilling me the way that, well, it will never fulfill me, but I definitely feel a lot more fulfilled when I'm like more focused, like doing what I need to do. And yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Now it's my turn. I've been debating for like the last, actually, since I reached out to y'all, if I'm gonna even share my story. And I probably won't share my full story until, I'm like completely ready. I could literally write a book, and I will write a book. But for now, I'll just say I'm not a virgin. And so for me, that has been a huge struggle, like a huge, huge struggle when it comes to like forgiving myself, when it comes to stopping. Because, like people who in this group that aren't virgins, that and even when you do stuff that's not penetration, you know what I'm saying? It's like hard to stop. It's like, okay, even if you don't love that person, it's like, okay, but I still feel that sexual desire towards you. And so for me, that was hard because not only was I not as close to God as I should have been, but I'm continuing to put myself in situations where I shouldn't be. So now I'm at a point where even y'all, I'm gonna just say it, this is for me too. Like this whole thing is for me too. But now I'm at a point where I'm trying to be intentional about everything that I do in Christ. You know what I'm saying? And that has been amazing. Like when I tell y'all, I'm like, ooh, Jesus. I love it. I love it so much. And I love God. And yes, that is what I have to say. First things first, I know we were just talking about, I know David was saying like how you've had different women in your life and they haven't been the right one. And so I want to say, just with dating in general for everybody, how has it been dating while trying to practice purity and or being a virgin?
Well, I say for me, I haven't even decided to date nobody since I decided to get myself together because I know that right now I ain't ready for that. I cannot handle that because I know I want to be physical and spend time with you, and I know my flesh isn't fully ready for that type of intimate relationship. So, I'm just keeping myself away from that. And that's why I feel like God has only provided me with women on social media to commute with that are still godly women, of course, but only from afar and not from up close because he knows that I'm not ready for that face-to-face type of relationship. But when it comes to the relationships I've been building online with the women that I've met through TikTok and through the hype houses I've joined, and I've joined a lot of different things to commute myself around other Christians. So I feel like he's provided me with women like that because it's more of a mental relationship that you have to build with somebody and really get to know them. So, but also there's some things I have to, get added onto that when we finally meet each other. But other than that, he's just been having me focus on the women online that I can help them. Because right now it's just basically about me helping them grow with God, not about a relationship to ever even come about, So, but if that does happen, then, I know it'll be the right time and I'm not going to push away from it. So yeah, I'm just waiting on God's time.
So for me, I've had like different experiences. I've had experiences where people like find out that you're a virgin and then they're just like, bye. I've had people who knew that I was a virgin and who would act like it was a safe space, but then in turn, like, still be trying to push for you to do stuff. And see, like, where you would push your boundaries. Or even ask the question, okay, so you said you were a virgin, but, like, what do you do? Like, what else do you do? Like, I need to know. And so I've had those experiences. I've been in a relationship with somebody else who actually was a virgin, and that was cool. I noticed that, like, I felt more comfortable because, like, we had discussions about what boundaries we needed to set. And, like, that relationship was cool because it was more intentional. So we were being realistic about expectations and knowing, okay, like, we're in a relationship, but what are the no's? What are the no's that we can write down? But I will say, even with that, it's still a matter of being strategic in how you're acting in different areas. Because, listen, like, we were both still virgins, but, like, if we was in the room alone, like, even just monitoring, like, what we're doing, you know, like, we can't, like, listen. So that's why I'm like, it's really, I've had varied experiences. Sometimes I'm grateful for the people who are honest and open to be like, yeah, like, you're a virgin, I'm not really trying to do that. And then also, like, it's just cool. I think, like, if you are in a relationship and you are pursuing purity, I think it is smart, though, to have a plan and be strategic and talk about your boundaries. And another thing that I did learn on this call was that they were saying that when you do get into a relationship, you have to be aware that your triggers might not be your partner's triggers. And so y'all have to have conversations about being willing to stop. Even if that doesn't bother you, it might bother your partner.
I definitely agree with what Kayla said. I feel like all the relationships or anything, like, when I meet someone, it's definitely not something I, like, straight off the bat say, because it's just like, I don't know, I feel like it's none of their business most of the time. But if they do end up asking, they do, like, yeah, it's normally pushing, okay, well, yeah, what else do you do? Well, what other experiences? Like, or just thinking, okay, like, that's what you're thinking right now, but not later. It's like, always, they're not really thinking I'm pretty, like, serious about it. And then, yeah, some people will just be like, oh, okay, bye. Or others are very, like, oh, that's cool, you know, respectful about it. But I definitely think that while I've been in this, like, change in my life and, like, relationship and, like, pursuing God and different things like that I have been doing, I haven't really been looking for any type of relationships with, like, anyone, because, like, I know everyone's like, oh, it's like your season of singleness, right? So I definitely know that, like, God's like, yeah, like, right now, no. But definitely people who still approach me or, like, may see me on social media, kind of thinking that that's where I want to go with things. I've just had to be just very upfront, honest, and, like, pretty blunt about it, so that they can like, leave it alone, type of thing. But I'll just say that, like, for, like, any girls that, like, might, like, listen, and it's, like, kind of being, like, nervous because, like, you might really like someone, and, like, it's like if you're younger or whatever it is, and you're so worried about, like, what they'll think about you saying that, then I always notice, and then that's just, like, not the person for me, because it shouldn't be that I'm just like, oh my God, like, this will change everything. That shouldn't be, like, their focus when getting to know you or date you or be with you or anything like that. So yeah.
I think for me, and that's so great, Kat. I think that is a really good message, and I think that needs to be said more. Is that if you feel that pressure in the beginning, that pressure does not subside. It continues and it grows because you become more intimate, and it festers because it's just the nature of the beast in many ways. For me, it's always interesting because I've been in ministry for now 7 years. And so that was kind of the heart of both ending high school and then going into college, was that I was in ministry. And so when you tell someone you're in ministry, there's the given perceptions of what that means for you to work at a church. And so it's like, okay, yes, I'm a preacher, and but I'm still human. And I think for me, it was both actual intimate relationships, so with a significant other, or even just acquaintances or friendships, both of those, that there had to be boundaries set. And on both ends of the spectrum, there are people who will push for it, and then you'll get those people that'll push against it. And you have to kind of find your way in that. And I think for me, that was what dating was. I'm currently in the same situation I'm currently in the same boat, David, is that like, I've kind of been like, I'm not in the space right now. Like, I need to kind of focus on me before I can try to attach myself to someone else. Because I learned early on that I would put my all into someone else and forget about me. And so it was however to make them happy or however to keep them satisfied. And that was not and is not the way you should live your life. We're called to live a life that is fruitful, but those are our fruits, not someone else's fruits that we water and we grow to see them flourish. It's also for us. And so for anybody out there, it's okay to be single. It is okay not to be in a relationship. I think you just have to find you. I think when we find out where we are and how we can get to where God is, I heard a speaker say it once. They said, keep running your race. Don't ever slow down running your race. Keep running your race. And then if you happen to look over to the right or to the left, and there's someone there running that race with you, and they don't break stride, you don't break stride. And you guys keep running together. And that's how that forms. Because if you stop in any race, if you turn around and look to see what's going on behind you, you slow down and you often stumble. So don't stop your race. Keep running your race and just wait for God to send someone who is running that race with you. And it might not be in your 20s. It might not be in your 30s. Just keep running that race, though.
Y'all saying something. Oh my goodness. So I definitely agree with that, in that, you put yourself in situations where you're making you want the other person to be happy more than satisfied, and you yourself are not even satisfied. And I found that I'm 22. So I found that in my 20s, when I turned 20, it was like God saying to me, okay, you need to double back. You need to learn all the things that you missed somehow when you was going through this, that, and the third. So I found when I think it was just when I turned 20 or a little before, I ended up being in a relationship with somebody where he was a virgin, and he was like, we are not having sex. And I was like, bet, like, this is great. This is what God wants for me or whatever. And I found that I was like, I was more tempted than him. Like, I was pushing his boundaries and his limits. And I was like, I want him to be happy, but I had no self-control. And so I was learning, okay, God, how do I have self-control? He was like, this ain't it. So he put things in place for me where he was like, you don't belong here. I'm going to move you here so that you can grow and you can flourish. And it was like, now I want to teach you this, that, and the third. So I've been like, I'm only 22. In the past 2 years, I've learned more than I feel like I've learned in my entire 4 years of high school. Like, I'm like, God is teaching me so much. And I think that it's just really so important to look at yourself first before you get in a relationship with somebody. I don't even remember what the question I asked was, but before you get in a relationship with somebody, just look at yourself and be like, self, do I have self-control? Do I have self-love? How do I feel about me at this moment in time? I think that has been the most important thing when thinking about dating. If you would just have patience when it comes to dating, and that's what I've been learning, patience in dating and patience in everything else, because I'm the most impatient and the most, I need stuff done right now. What is the word? I don't know the word, but I need it now when I'm like that. So even when it comes to projects I'm working on, God has just really been teaching me patience. And I think that that's something that I've taken into my dating life as well. And I've also found too in my 20s that it hasn't been hard. When you're really focusing on yourself, God will send you the right people. And I feel like every relationship has been a lesson. And I found that I've been able to find people that are okay with not having sex. And that, I feel like in today's society is like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you tell them that, they're like, okay, we don't have to have sex. And there's always those guys that are like, that'll say that. They're like, yeah, we don't have to have sex or whatever. And then like a month later, they're like, so where we at, And I've been in a lot of those situations in my teens years, and I'm like, okay, hold on. But yeah, patience and, just really listening to God and making sure that you're okay with yourself. I want to ask this. What is your reaction to the common thought that if you don't have sex before marriage, you could end up with someone that you're not sexually compatible with? What do you guys think about that?
That's exactly how I was before I gave myself to God. I was like, look, we don't have. I was like, we gotta have sex the first time we see each other, or whatever, before we decide to go on. Because I don't want to do nothing with you, and then next thing we get married and it's trash, and I'm just like, what the Lord did I do for the rest of my life? I don't want to make that type of decision. But one thing that us as Christians, and even just like people in general, it's like you got to remember that if you wait till marriage, you're going to build up that type of love for that person to where you can't wait to have sex with them. No matter if to the woman it ain't that big enough for you, it's like, look, you got that type of love for them to where it's like that the intimacy is so amazing to where it makes the sex even better, right? So that's what you have. That's what people just need to think about. Don't worry about if the sex is so good or whatever the size, whatever, all that. Don't worry about all that, okay? Because at the end of the day, God's going to put you in. He's going to put you with the right person if you allow him to. And you don't make that decision, you allow him to make that decision. That is the key to all of that. Allow God to make the decision for you of who you want to, of who your relationship is going to be with. So that's what kind of made sense for me. I was like, that don't even make sense for me to say that. I was like, that's dumb for people to even think that. Like, you're gonna have sex first, and then, because at the end of the day, you're giving the biggest part of you to that person before you even know anything about them. If you decide to do that. And so I didn't realize that at first, but now I do, because God obviously gave me the wisdom for it. So yeah,
I agree. He look, David, you done put it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. He just pulled one of those. But but yeah, like I honestly had to think about it, because even though I've stayed a virgin, for me, like my experience is different in terms of like I had opportunities that I had to be like, look. I said no. I said what I said. But also, like, thinking about it, I had to put myself in a situation where I'm like, if God's desire for me is to be married, the person that I'm married with, like, I trust God with that. So, look, Lord, I trusted you, so this is the person for me. So when we get to that step, you know what I'm saying? It's going to have to be beautiful, because it's just going to have to be, like, he chose that person specifically for me. This is my life partner. And even if it isn't, it's a marriage. It's not like we have it once and we never have it again. You can work. It's something that you work on. And also, like, even in terms of that whole aspect of sex, like, when you're married, it's not even really about you. They're looking, like, your spouse is looking out for the best interest of you, and you're looking for the best interest of your spouse. So regardless, like, that's something that you guys can grow on. Even if it wasn't as great as you thought it was going to be, it's something that can become more beautiful with time. So in my opinion, it's more so like it shows a lack of trust. Because at the end of the day, like, if God really ordered our steps and he chose that person for you to do life with, it's going to have to be beautiful. That's my resolve.
I think it's also to the point, like, for y'all listening to this and not watching the video, you're missing all of the reactions to what we're saying, because we all have our mics muted. And I think that just makes it 10 times more authentic. But I think even in that, there is a measure of knowing who is that. And I think when we talk about this, like, okay, like, and I honestly, I have like people who still ask me that, like, oh, what if I wait till like I get married and then my wedding night it's like a fail? I was like, how would you know it's a fail? Like, that's for and that's the difference for people who have had sex. You know what it can be, good, bad, and ugly, and so you have to kind of put that into perspective. But I think we often take sex out of the context in which it was meant for, and we make it a physical thing. And there are people who think that you can only do it as a physical act. But that's not true. Like, its entire instance was for a sole purpose. It wasn't to just get your blood running and your adrenaline pumping. It was to satisfy the heart. It was a heart thing. There's a connection that happens, and you can't take that based on the physical. And what you said, Kayla, like, it's a work ethic. I'm a Bible Bible nerd. And so Paul tells us like all the time that like when you're married, you keep doing it. Like you don't stop doing it. You keep doing it and you keep connecting with each other. And it's a physical thing, but it's also a spiritual thing in marriage. And I think we've taken that out of context. And so it's like, oh, like, what if it's not good? And trust me, if God put his hand in it, I can tell you it's going to be good. That's the fact. Like, ask any married couple who waited till they were married, and they'll tell you, like, I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else, because there's an emotion to it. There's a buildup to it. When you buy your first car, like, you've drove your mom's car, you've drove everybody else's car, you've done all of that. But the moment you get your car, you start driving your car, you feel different about driving cars because it's yours. And so that's the same way. Like, think about anything you own. It's yours. So you hold there's something more to it. And so you just have to take that into consideration. And that was big for me. And it's just that I had to kind of like refresh my thought. I think that was kind of a flesh thing to say, oh, like, you got to do this before you get married. Like, you're going to marry somebody that don't know what to do or how to do it, and you're going to be mad. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be mad. Like, if I am, I'll be mad and married. So I'll go sit in the other room and get over it. So that's just it.
I love that. I'll be mad and married. I'll say, and this is just a different spin on words on what Kayla said. When you're married, you would hope that your marriage is ordained by God, right? So if your marriage is ordained by God, God is going to make it so that, and I said this before, that y'all can enjoy each other in every way that you want to. And I really don't understand people who they say they don't want to marry a virgin, or they don't want to be a virgin because y'all are going to lack experience. I look at it like this. A virgin is a blank slate. You can teach them everything you want them to know in every way to make you happy. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. Because even if you've had sex before, you haven't experienced the person that you're married to. You don't know what they like. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I feel like you really just have to put your trust in God. And when God places that person in your life, be like, God, I know you're going to handle everything under the cloud of marriage. And you have to trust him for that. And I feel like that has been, because honestly, I slightly had that mindset too. I was like, how are you going to buy a car and don't test drive it? Like, but in reality though, if it was meant for you, is meant for you. And God's going to make sure it's all right. You know what I'm saying? Kat, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, so I agree. I think that first of all, yeah, if it was a marriage ordained by God, and like, if it's someone that we worked all that way up till marriage, like enough to like wait till marriage, I understand that fear. I guess I've never really said that. But I've heard definitely a lot of like guys around me and girls around me say that a lot. I was just like, well, if it's whoever I'm married to, like, I guess I'm not worried because we got married. Like, I feel like that's a big thing to do. And if like they were respectful, or like, you know, just we waited all that time. I was just never worried about that. And I just think, like you said, like, you could always like teach someone, it's a learning experience. And how people always say like, or I had heard there's this couple on YouTube who waited till marriage, and they talked about how like God was like never like sex is bad, or like he never said like he doesn't want us to have sex, he doesn't want us to like enjoy sex, but it is something that he wants to save for marriage because of like the intense connection that it can create and stuff, and you don't want to have that with just everybody. So yeah, I think if that's a worry, it really shouldn't be when it comes to like someone you're gonna marry. And I was like I said about how it's like a deep connection, it is beyond just like the physicalness of like it being like quote unquote good or whatever. I think when you have like that emotional or like deeper connection with someone, it will be good regardless. I just don't think that should be, it's like a very legitimate good, like I understand where the fear comes from, but I just feel like, you know, like it shouldn't be there. But yeah.
So I like a lot, like and it's cool to me because I'm familiar with a lot of these questions in general about like living pure and also like marriage, because my parents actually are over the couples ministry at my church. I'm also a PK. I didn't say that before, so that's great. But even the other aspect that I thought about too, as well, is that when you get married, like, I feel like it's a tendency where you shouldn't be bored, because it's continually finding new ways to love that person. It's just like a relationship, learning what they love. But then as well, like, you guys continue to grow. So as you grow as people, there's new ways of doing things. There's new ways of enjoying your spouse. And so just even thinking about that aspect too, like, it'll be beautiful when you first do it, but the continuation of the marriage, you're continually learning each other more. You're continually learning, like, each other's love language. After a couple of years, they change. So it's like a thing that just keeps going. It's like your relationship with God. Like, you shouldn't really be bored. There are times when you might feel like, okay, it's a dry season, but like, the boredom of it is more so like there's more to learn. And so even being in a relationship and being in a marriage, it's like new things to learn, new ways for me to learn how to love you. Your body has changed, so I'm learning this in the physical, but even like spiritually, and mentally, like, things change. So I think it's a cool thing to also like understand that if you do wait, it won't be bored. You won't get bored, because there's more things to learn. There's more ways to learn about yourself and your partner. And so I just thought about that.
So for all y'all out there that don't understand what she was trying to say in the elegant way is, she said when you get married, you can't be bored in the bed. There's always a way to spice it up. That's what she was trying to tell y'all. So Google it if you married.
Okay. I know we have some people that are in ministry in this call. I'm in ministry as well. I'm one of the leaders on the dance ministry at my church. And so when you think about church and you think about how there's always like youth conferences, and I don't know if y'all do like the lockdowns or whatever, and there would always be like, I mean, my church did this thing where like they had 13 and up go upstairs. They'd be like, all right, look, don't have sex. Like, it was like that type thing. And I want to know, how do you guys think the church should go about encouraging youth and young adults to practice abstinence and wait until marriage?
I think that it should be talked about more in the church. I don't think it's talked about enough, because I know it definitely won't talk about like that when I was growing up in church. Definitely not. I mean, because, well, I'm still growing up in church, obviously, but like, it's like, because I know before I had sex the first time, I know we talked about it. They said we're gonna get our purity rings and all that, and like the next week, boom, I had sex. So it was like, oh, I said I was gonna do it. I was gonna wait till marriage, but not no more. But anyway, so it's like they're more afraid of doing it because they feel like they're gonna push the kids to have sex rather than telling them what it can do to them. Because I didn't learn about soul ties until this year. I didn't know nothing about that. So I was like, I wish I would have known this before I gave myself to somebody at the beginning. So, but if they would just, instead of having a fear of it and just encourage talking about it, kids will understand how to keep themselves out of that type of situation and the emotional damage that sex brings before marriage, and the spiritual as well, because you get demons attached to you from having sex with just random people that you don't even know. So you get the anxiety, the depression, the anger, the hurt, that the other people have, and it attaches to you. But it's not all because of the church. But if the church would mention that to kids growing up, then they would know about that, and they would want to shy away more from sex than want to go to having sex more, because at the end of the day, you get made fun of because you're a church kid in school and because you're not wanting to have sex. But I feel like if I would have known about the damage that it could have done to me, I would have been like, okay, cool, I ain't tripping about that. Look, y'all the ones getting hurt. I'm staying good. But y'all going to be hurt at the end of the day. Y'all got a lot of demons to fight because y'all wanted to make that decision before you just gave it to that one person. So, yeah.
I think, this is a big one, and I have this conversation a lot, and I think the church has done, just in general, a terrible job with this conversation, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm Baptist, and so like this was the conversation: if you have sex before marriage, you're going to hell. And then you said, wait a second, what? And they said, yep, you had sex before marriage, you're going straight to hell. And so it was like, what? That's weird. But it was also like, we find ourselves in situations where when you tell people not to do something without giving them insight into it, they want to do it. Just this, if that's the reality, is that when you tell people not to do something, there's a rebellious nature, especially in kids, that you have to do it. So
I was just gonna say that I didn't hear it talked that much about. I didn't hear it talked about much, but when I did hear it talked about, it was very like kind of like I was saying, like in a very shameful, like guilty way to people. Like it wasn't really an open conversation or like a conversation where I felt like they were educating the kids or like teens that I was around. It was just more like, yeah, if you're doing it, like that's bad and you should be ashamed of it. And like I was just like sitting there, like obviously I wasn't really someone that would feel like guilty, but I was sitting there like if I was, and I wouldn't want to come back, I wouldn't really want to grow closer with God. It would just make me feel very like this wasn't very uplifting in a sense, like if that makes sense. It's just I just felt like it should have been communicated in a different manner to those that were sitting there in the ministry, and that it like we talk about like how he's so forgiving and things like that. So why are you coming and talking to a lot of kids that might not know much about anything in this like really kind of like mean tone about it? But I'm sure they had made similar mistakes themselves, like the people that were talking about it that were like adults. So yeah, I just feel like it's just like the tone and the way that they do it. And yeah, being more educated, like he said, like about like soul ties and about like how strong that connection is and not to do it with everyone. Like that type of education on it is a lot better than the way that I've heard it talked about.
Hey man, so I was gonna say the reason why I got into sex early was because it was so normalized in the world, and the church leaves it up to the world to teach the kids about sex and not God's way about sex.
Okay, this conversation. So I love this question just because, like, same. Like, I've in church, like, it was always told, like, don't have sex. I didn't get the don't have sex, you go to hell. They just was telling us don't have sex, abstain before marriage, all that great stuff. But I noticed that for me personally, I feel as though finding a way to create a safe space to talk about it, for them to even feel open enough to talk, is number one, the important thing. And two, transparency. Like, transparency is so important because you could tell somebody not to do it all day, but not having the explanation of, okay, I know that I'm telling you not to have sex, but this is what happened to me and why. Like, transparency helps. And of course, even with transparency, you do have to use wisdom and really allow the Holy Spirit to tell you what to reveal and what not to reveal, just because you just never know what people are dealing with. But transparency is super important. And that has helped me in my walk as well, because, like, listen, not having sex is cool, but there's so many other things that are under the umbrella of what sexual purity is, and that people don't teach you. And they just say, abstain from having sex, which leaves all these gray areas that nobody wants to talk about specifically. Like, okay, this is a gray area, but you're still going to have deliverance if you do this thing. Like, if you touch this, you're still going to have to go through a healing process because, listen. And so I think, like, for me, it's about the approach. It's all about the approach. Because it's just like a person. Like, if you meet a person and they're very hateful, you're not going to want to receive the words that they're saying. But if you're doing it from a pure heart, and if you set up a scenario to where you're safe in being transparent, as well as, like, they're able to really listen to you and hear you, I feel like transparency is just the best thing. Because I noticed even for me, like, the groups that would try to situate it like that. Like, I know my church, when we were younger, they used to separate the girls from the guys. And then that's when we used to have them real good meat and bones conversations. And I feel like that would be the benefit, because sometimes you just telling somebody to do something without having the transparency behind, and also doing the delivery in love, they're not really going to receive it. But ultimately, it still is the person's choice hearing it. But still, like, having that open space of getting able to really know the consequences behind your actions, coupled also with if you did fall before knowing this information, or if you do end up falling, we serve a loving God. So although he's holy and this is something that he doesn't accept, you can still run to him and be like, look, God, I'm sorry. I want to do it again. Because on the flip side of that as well is, if you give me this information in this hateful tone, what does that say about God? Because does that mean that God's going to get me? Does that mean I got to hide? Or can I run to him? So I feel like that. I said a lot, but I feel like that's things that you should think about if you are trying to deliver the message to children or even grown-ups, just people who probably never even heard the truth.
Yeah, I remember, I guess it was like a purity conference or whatever, and it was around when I was 13, and they did, or 14 maybe, and they had an example where they had a chocolate chip cookie and a sugar cookie, and they were saying, I think they were using the example of kissing in the hallway at school, and they were like, if you kiss, you'll get mono or whatever disease, and that's the chocolate chip cookie, but you want the pure cookie, you want the sugar cookie. And in my mind, I was like, well, chocolate chip cookies are better than sugar cookies. So I'm confused. So I think just being very conscious about your examples that you use. And also kind of along the lines of what Kayla was saying. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention. Jamarcus had to jump off. He told me that ahead. That's why he left. But anyway, yeah, being conscious of that. And I think they need to have more people who have gone through different things and have experienced different things tell their story. Because I feel like with what I've been through, yes, that was sin. And yes, I wasn't supposed to be doing X, Y, Z. But because I've gone through X, Y, Z, I have a story to tell, right? And so now I can impact women and teenagers and young adults, throughout the world with however God will want me to do that. And I think they need to have more people come up and be like, look, I had sex and now I have this, that, and the third. It traumatized me. I'm anxious all the time. I had trouble forgiving myself. This is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And really explain why it didn't work for them. And maybe it'll help people think like, dang, like she really, like, I remember hearing a story, one girl almost killed herself. It's like, dang, she really like struggled with that many demons because she had sex with somebody that God didn't have for her. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like if more people were actually honest, like my church did a panel and they had a girl who had 2 kids before marriage. And she was just saying, don't have sex, don't have sex. And I'm like, she has a story. Why should I not have sex? Can you tell me why? Why? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's what we want to know. That's what we need to hear. It's like they're hiding their stories. Nobody wants to tell the truth. You know what I'm saying? And one lady impacted me when we did a conference. It was like during a lockdown and they separated the girls and the boys. And she was like, I know what y'all be doing. She was like, y'all be up late at night having phone sex, doing this, that, and the third. And this is why you shouldn't do that. And I'm going to tell, she said, in college, I was a hoe. Excuse my language. She was like, I was a hoe. And she was like blatant with us. And I was like, wow. Like, I don't want to experience that. And she said, because she was doing all the wrong things, she ended up getting in drinking and she ended up having sex or whatever. And she ended up with a condition because of it. And I'm just like, see, that's what we need to hear. And use your testimony, use the way that God has brought you out to explain that to other people. Because if not, I'm going to just have a sugar cookie and a chocolate chip cookie. And I'm going to be like, well, the chocolate chip cookie is more appealing. So, I'm going to ask one last thing, maybe 1 or 2 last things, because I don't want to hold you guys too long. For those who have had sex before in any capacity, and now that you're trying to live a pure life, how have you struggled with forgiving yourself at first? And how have you been able to forgive yourself and turn back to God?
Well, I'll say no at first. Well, no, because I knew that, I knew, but I didn't know. Like, I knew God, but I didn't know God, So it wasn't like, I still look back in my life and I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like, man, I was really doing all that. Like, I was a dog, bro. Like, that is crazy, right? But I just look at it like, that's just more of a story for me to tell other young men who are coming up who are trying to do the same exact things I was doing. Even if they might not hear it, I'm still letting them know, like, look, this is what you're going to lead yourself to in the future, But I say whenever I did decide to make the decision to live for God and I was still backsliding, that's whenever at first it was like, oh my Lord, like, why I still do this? God, like, I know now, like, I know you, so why am I still making this decision? But then immediately I just have to remember, okay, God, you forgave me, so just please give me the power to forgive myself, please, because I don't, you don't want to just keep walking around with that guilt feeling, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just sinned. Like, we're not going to sin. Like, God already knew I was going to do it, even though now it just became to where now I just had to make sure I wasn't putting myself in those situations to be tempted to end up getting that guilt feeling again, because that's not something I ever liked. I didn't like having that feeling. And I definitely, whenever I made decisions to never see those certain type of people or see the women I was seeing no more, because whenever you're doing that, the only reason why most people still hang around those temptations is because they don't want to hurt those people's feelings, or they want to keep that connection. It's a friendship that they're going to lose, but it's like that friendship is hurting you more than helping you right now, because you're not in a place to where you can still see them and not be tempted to do something, right? So I say that at the end of the day, remember to forgive yourself, because God already forgave you. At the end of the day, He's waiting on you to forgive yourself to give you that healing that you need.
For me, any like sexual or type of experience I had before, like I started practicing purity and things like that, was under the name of, oh, this is someone I love, or this is like, it was all in this like long-term relationship, which was with someone that was also like, we were both like going to the same church. So in my head, it was like, I don't know how to explain it really on this like in this type of setting, but it was just definitely more so like, oh, like I'm doing this because like, and it was more so initiated all by him. It wasn't really like on my mind like that. I was definitely like not really into it the same way, but it was just like, oh, like I love this person and that's what they want to do, and so like I'm gonna do it because we love each other and this, that. And I was like very young, so like that was like kind of why I had all those things. And afterwards, I was younger, so I wasn't really thinking about God like that. I didn't really feel that type of guilt. I kind of in my head knew like, this isn't really like to me, it was just like, this isn't really, I'm not really doing it for me. And so that was kind of my guilt about it more so, I guess. But it wasn't like I was guilty in the sense of like about God. But now, like beyond even sex, just like I'm in college, like I'm younger, there's so many different temptations. There's like a lot around me that I could do like every single day. So yeah, if I get into something, or if I'm like in a environment that I feel like, oh, like this is definitely not where I'm supposed to be, and then I get home and I do have like that, like, oh, like I really shouldn't have been in that type of environment. Like there's so many more things I could have been doing. And yeah, that guilt, I don't like that feeling, because it's just like I knew better. But it is just being like forgiving about like not being so hard on myself every time I mess up, because I saw this thing. It was like, you make one mistake and then you feel like, oh, like I did that, so like now I should do this and that. You don't kind of like think like I did that, so like let me bounce back. Like some people will kind of go like on like a tunnel of just doing bad things because they did one bad thing. So it's like trying not to do that. Like just because I was in a bad environment like one night doesn't mean let me like turn around and like do every single like, bad thing I could possibly do. So yeah, I kind of forgot kind of what your question was at the beginning, but hopefully I answered it.
Okay, so I have struggled with forgiving myself a lot, actually. Like even just thinking about my trail of like from elementary school, like it's crazy. Like I really did not know nothing. Like I was over here like I kissed a boy and I said, like I promise you, like that's crazy to think about it now. But like I remember being young and holding this guilt because I kissed a boy in second grade, and I thought that was the worst thing in the world. Because again, people don't like not being taught things. So that happened, and then like even my cycle through high school, I was doing stuff, and then like I would just feel like it was the worst thing in the world. I felt like I couldn't forgive myself. And so for me, it had to do with my perspective of God, and putting him in this box of not being a dad, and not even a dad in like a physical sense. If you do have a father, like how they act, but like him being God, Like, he's loving. He already like forgave you for those sins. He just wants you to come and confess them and then make a choice. I feel like the important part of it is making a choice. Like what Kat said, what is your next step? And understanding that, okay, God already forgave you. So you don't want to hold yourself back from receiving God's love and his forgiveness. So it's like, he already forgave you and he already knew you were sinning. Like, there was a scripture that said he died for us while we were still yet sinners. Like, he still paid the price for all of our sins while we were still sinning, and he knew that it was still going to happen. So it's really up to us just understanding God more, and like understanding his love, and understanding like, okay, this forgiveness that he gave you, it was a gift. Like, somebody gave you a gift, you could choose to accept it or not. So you harboring this guilt and this unforgiveness is a choice that you're making. And so understanding, like, he already paid that ultimate price. So just accept the gift, like he gave it. As well as, again, like, the important thing is making the choice. And if you do fall again, like, he still forgave you. But it's important to understand as well that you are in control of your actions. So even if you do feel like bad about it and you feel guilty about it, it's really like, what are your next steps? Like, what do you choose to do next? Do you want to continue falling and continue feeling this guilty feeling, or do you want to accept the gift that God has given you and move forward and ask, like, okay, so are there some things I need to eliminate? Like, again, like David said, like, certain people he knew that he had to cut off. So I feel like it's important to just understand those things.
Okay, I have a good closer. I didn't want to end this without asking this one. So aside from everything else that we've said today, you think about sex, there's so much under that, where when it comes to, like Kayla was talking about earlier, pornography, masturbation, oral, like everything, right? So I just want to ask, what would you tell someone who has the desire to do any of that, and how do you resist temptation?
I would say, this is how I like to break it down to people. Like, if God was sitting right beside you while you was committing that act, would he look at you and say, I'm proud of you? Or would he be disappointed? I mean, that's honestly a good way to think about it. While I'm over here about to masturbate, if God was sitting beside me, would he be cool with me doing that? Or I'm over here about to smoke a blunt. If God was sitting right beside me, would he be cool with that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's honestly a good way to think about it, because it'll stop you immediately from doing what you're about to do, because you're like, no, he's not going to like that, so let me not even do it. And plus, especially if you know God and he can speak to you, you need to always seek him before you even put yourself in a position like that. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. So as long as you seek him, the wisdom that you need, the peace and the strength that you need to withdraw from that temptation is going to be there. But if you're not thinking about God in that situation, you're going to commit that temptation. All right, so you just always make sure to always have your mind fixed on the Lord, and then you'll be able to stay away from those temptations.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely think, like, I remember I was in church one Tuesday night and they were talking about, like, temporary fillers or temporary void filler. I don't remember, like, the exact word they used, but it stuck with me because I heard it, like, a year ago. And they're like, basically everything you mentioned, smoking, drinking, added to that, just anything, it's a temporary filler. It's like a temporary moment of, like, happiness, pleasure, whatever it is. And so that's kind of the mindset I've had on it. Like, it's just definitely me kind of escaping something, or just trying to have, like, a moment of fulfillment or whatever. And they were talking about when you're pursuing God or your purpose and, like, what you're here for, and your anointing, that fulfilling is not temporary. It's, like, forever. And so when I'm doing things like my videos for my platform, or just interacting with my followers, or listening to a sermon, journaling, praying, things like that, that fulfillment definitely is just so much greater. And on top of that, I don't have that guilty feeling afterwards, or, like, I don't feel like bad about it when I'm done. And it in turn normally is helping someone else at the same time.
You guys both said some really great answers, honestly. Yeah, really great answers. And I really think as well is understanding your why, because like you're having these desires to do them, but why do you have these desires? The first is one of the questions as well. Because that'll help you understand yourself more and understand, like, is there something that's triggering you to have this desire? Are you avoiding something? Like, have you not been spending time with God, so you feel like you need something to give you this experience, this outer body experience? As well as like understanding what purity, like what the difference is, like what purity is versus sexual immorality. Like, so like for me, what really helped me is like I watched this video of this poet, and he was talking about why masturbation is technically a sin, even if you are married. Because he was like, it's literally the definition of sexual morality is giving away your purity, your pure self to something else, even if it's giving it to yourself, versus like under the umbrella of marriage, it's sanctioned. And so like for me, I feel like it's also important to understand, why are you having these feelings? Are you avoiding something? Did you put yourself in this situation? Because the beautiful thing about the Lord and the Holy Spirit is that the Holy Spirit will warn you before you put yourself in a situation. Like, I don't think you should go there. I told you not to go to that party. You supposed to be on a fast. Why you not guarding your eyes? Like, like there's so many different things. Like the Holy Spirit will literally like keep you in check as well. So I feel like the other important thing as well is to understand like your source. Like, why are you feeling this way? Have you been feeding yourself with the wrong things? And again, to see God, because like that's the only answer, because everything else is not really going to satisfy you the way that God can, because he created you.
Y'all saying some really good stuff. I don't have much to say after all that. Dang. I'll just say, I think it's important to, you should be able to get to a place where you have conversations with God and you can stop yourself. But I think if you're starting out and you're struggling, you should have an accountability partner. Have someone you can call and be like, look, I'm about to, yeah. And they'd be like, don't do that. I'll talk to you until you don't feel that desire anymore. And I think that's important, to just have somebody to be honest with. And you can like be vulnerable with them, be like, I'm feeling like this, and I'm going to go to his house right now, and I'm going to do XYZ. And they'll be like, no, so I think that's just another little tidbit. But I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I just feel so blessed to have had this vision, first of all, and to be able to have all of you guys on the call.
Thanks again to all of my wonderful guests that have joined into this conversation. If you would like to follow them, all of their social media links will be in the description box below. If you are watching this on YouTube and have made it to the end, go ahead and leave some hearts in the comments. If you are listening in on my podcast, be sure to subscribe, and please rate this podcast 5 stars. Much love from Liv. Bye!